Here's a little story for you. Once upon a time, I was on a work trip with some time to kill and decided to check out an anime I'd heard a lot about. Despite a highly enjoyable first episode, I dropped the series after episode 2. Why? I don't even remember. That anime was Dr. Stone, and today I'm going to talk about all the reasons how the decision I made that night was one of the worst I've ever made. First, once I drop something, for better or worse, it is extremely difficult for me to want to pick it back up. Take note, ladies. After giving up on that, despite constantly hearing good things, it probably took me around 2 years to give it another shot. And when I did, I was blown away, because there is nothing else out there like Dr. Stone, and I mean that in the best way possible. Basically, something happens that brings the Earth back to the Stone Age, and a group of people have to start from scratch to bring civilization back to where it was. This is led by the greatest genius in anime, Senku, who seemingly knows everything you need to about science and the elements. Dr. Stone is an educational anime, and yeah, I know, that doesn't sound great. It's also a shonen, so wrap your head around that. But the educational element here actually draws you in. We see how items we take for granted every day are made, and also how they were originally created, step by step. When you watch the series, you really realize how good we have it in modern times, and how difficult it would be to regain civilization if something catastrophic happened. Which makes it so much fun watching Senku and the others try to rebuild society in a world that has lost it. While going in depth on the science aspect could certainly be off-putting for some, it made me greatly appreciate the history of humanity so much more, seeing how far we've come. The process behind these creations is dumbfounding to me and shows how useless I'd be without modern tech. But you don't need to be intrigued by science to get into this show, because at its core, it's really a story about humanity. One of the things that makes Senku so great is that yes, he's a scientific genius, but he understands how valuable the human element of life and society are. Things like celebrating Christmas, or creating fireworks, or taking a photo, are all things that inject so much heart into the show, and I love it. For as much education in science as we get, they never take the emotional side for granted. You have to feel for Senku too, because he was raised in a world with everything you could dream of scientifically, and then plopped into one with nothing. And he carries the burden of restarting the world as the most important person alive. However, just because he's the most important doesn't mean he's the only one who matters. One of the reasons why dropping the show was a terrible idea is this may have my favorite cast of characters going, and there's no reason not to spend as much time with these guys as possible. Senku, Suika, Ryusui, Kohaku, Gen, Chrome, Kaseki, Taiju, Yuzuriha, Kinro, Ginro, Tsukasa, and so many others are incredibly likable and create such an amazing atmosphere in Dr. Stone. Obviously, without Senku, the whole world falls apart, but he couldn't rebuild society without the skills and expertise of the others either. And that basically extends my point from earlier. Humanity matters just as much as the science, which is on full display with every character providing some value. Even if they didn't, they'd still be entertaining as hell. Ryusui and his finger snap are iconic, and that's before getting into the coolest interpretation of greed in a character I've ever seen in a positive light. Are you even living if you don't enjoy the great detective Suika? I'd say no. Chrome, being the premier scientist of his age, learning from and adapting to modern science is really cool to see and provides a ton of inspiring and comedic moments. You can tell he's a legitimate genius in his own right. Watching him come up with things that already existed to Senku but Chrome had no clue shows how creative he is. Anytime you have an elite cast of characters, the rest is smooth sailing, but this goes so far beyond that. Every season does an amazing job building up to the next big creation needed for society to move forward. Somehow, they always manage to shock me with what they end up making next, too. Every big reveal has exceeded my expectations. It started with a light bulb, something so small and insignificant to us, but felt so massive, important, and meaningful in the show. From there, it goes wild with what they accomplish. This may not be a popular take, but I think every season has only gotten better to this point. Season 1 did a great job of introducing the characters, the world, and setting up where things needed to go. Season 2 did a great job progressing things, while also giving us some great ideological clashes. Season 3 is pure chaos, and it's amazing. Missing out on some of those things in real time with other fans definitely makes me regret passing up on this when I did. Those aren't things you could get back, and seeing the reaction to it after the fact isn't quite the same. One of the things that added to my love of Season 3 was seeing others' reactions to it in real time. Dr. Stone is such an uplifting and moving series, one that I wish I had been able to share with others earlier. Of the 200-some anime I've seen, it's firmly within my top 10. And if you haven't watched it yet, learn from my mistake and give it a shot. With that, I'm out.